I can't believe it. I really can't believe that we've come this far. Ladies and gentlemen, today we get to talk about a video game. When Aya Nishitani started writing the Megami Tensei series, he directly contacted the publishers of the book about turning it into a video game. The publisher in turn gave the license to two studios. The first to release the game was the now-defunct developer Telnet Japan, which released the game Megami Tensei on a number of PCs. The game is not related to the series we intend to cover for this video, but I wanted to give it a quick mention. If you want to know more about this game, then I'm going to suggest checking out the video by SMT tuber Marsh, which I have linked in the iCards for you to check out. The other publisher, naturally, was Atlus. He created another game with the same name, but a much longer lasting impact. This Megami Tensei game was released on the Famicom in September 1987. I mentioned this before, but the title translates to Reincarnation of the Goddess, in this case referring to Izanami, one of the Shinto creator gods. I told her story in my video on Nishitani's first book, and I'm sure I'll give the Mother Goddess her own video at some point in the future as well. The game would eventually be remade as Kyoyaku Megami Tensei on the Super Famicom. This remake bundled together both Megami Tensei 1 and 2 and labeled them as the Old Testament, compared to the New Testament that was the Shin Megami Tensei games, which had begun to release by that time. I will mainly be focusing on the remakes in this episode, as per the usual. Neither the original game nor its remake has ever been officially released in English. However, the original game is currently available to buy on Switch as part of the Japanese version of Namco Collection, if you'd like to buy it. This game serves as a sequel to the second book in the series, and opens with Akemi Nakajima and his girlfriend Yumiko Shirsagi having recovered from their battle against the Egyptian god Set. However, with the walls between Atziluth, the demon realm, and the human world becoming much thinner, hell has begun to come to Earth. Even worse, the ruler of demons, the fallen angel Lucifer, has set his eyes on humanity once more. Lucifer uses the weakened separation to connect his palace, called Daimakyu, the Great Netherworld Palace, to Izanami's burial place in the village of Asuka, threatening to conquer the human world. He also resurrected both Loki and Set, who had previously been defeated by Nakajima and Yumiko. Once again, the two teenagers need to stand together to defend the human realm from these demonic forces. The pair enter Makai and find themselves in Maikon City on the 8th floor of Daedalus Tower. At the bottom of the tower sits the Minotaur, the first boss of the game and holder of the Orb of Silence. Immediately, this sets the framework for a large number of games in the Megami Tensei series going forward, with a male protagonist who cannot use magic, and a companion heroine who can. This party setup will go on to be used in a great number of Shin Megami Tensei games going forward. It also establishes the Minotaur as the first boss. He would return in a few games, but most notably as the notorious first boss of Shin Megami Tensei 4. This tower acts as a reference to, without surprise, the Greek myth of the Minotaur, the bestial half-man, half-bull son of the Queen of Crete, who was sealed in a labyrinth beneath the island. The labyrinth was designed by a man named Daedalus, known as one of the greatest inventors in Greece, who was then trapped on the island so as to never reveal the maze's secrets. The Tower of Daedalus, therefore, is likely meant to be a version of the labyrinth. On the bottom floor of the tower, Nakajima and Yumiko are able to meet Cerberus, Nakajima's demon companion for the previous books, and convince him to join their quest. While they can recruit any number of demons throughout the game, this is the only one that we know for sure was recruited, as he is required to enter a special dungeon we'll discuss later. This also establishes Cerberus as a powerful demon often found in the earlier parts of the game. Upon leaving the tower, our heroes enter the Valhalla corridor. We'll get back here soon, but it isn't really our second location. This location is actually in the skies above Valhalla, the floating city of Bien. I'm not actually certain of the origin of this name. I've come up with two theories for this. I consider it possibly coming from the Vietnamese city of Dien Bien Phu, I hope I pronounced that right, which was home to a decisive battle that helped lead to the end of European colonialism in much of Asia. However, a more likely option is that the name came from Bienor, a name used in a number of Greek myths. One of the people to have this name was a centaur who was killed by Theseus, tying us back into the mythology of the Minotaur from the previous dungeon. I returned to Greek mythology mostly due to the boss of this area. the Gorgon Medusa, who I assume needs no introduction for most of you. She was a monster whose gaze turned any who made eye contact with her into stone. Medusa has attacked the city before Nakajima and Yumiko arrived, petrifying its citizens and convincing her ally the Minotaur to create the Taurus key, which would allow her to seal off the inhabited parts of the city. However, she would be slain by the heroes, allowing its inhabitants to recover. The city is actually able to move from dungeon to dungeon, serving as a base of operations for the heroes of our story. Now we can return back to Valhalla. This area is named for one of the Halls of the Dead in Norse myth. Its name means Hall of the Slain, and it is where those who died a warrior's death prepare to fight at Odin's side during Ragnarok. It is here that Nakajima's first mistake, the demon Loki, awaits. He was revived by Lucifer and granted greater power in order to serve his master's whims. In a smaller part, in Valhalla, Nakajima can also find the ghost of Isma Feed, the sorcerer who was killed during the events of the second book. It seems that, despite his evil intentions, Isma was decreed worthy of dying a warrior's death, and wound up here in Valhalla. However, he would die a second death at the hands of Nakajima and Yumiko. Before the two arrived, a human wizard known as Lore had created a talisman in hopes of sealing away Loki's power. Lore would later be avenged by the heroes, wielding his talisman and putting Loki away once more. In doing so, they would also collect the second orb, the Orb of Malice. A few other events happened in Valhalla. First, our heroes came across a demon named Rick, who was imprisoned by Loki. When freed, he serves Nakajima and Yumiko, and also grants them his bracelet, which would become important later. Second, it's time to talk about Cerberus again. Deep in the Valhalla corridor, the stench of death is overwhelming, and when Cerberus is in the party, they find out why. A door to Hades, the Greek world of the dead, has opened up in Valhalla. It seems that the doors of Hades have opened, and the dead are returning to the land of the living. Upon reaching the exit to this realm, Cerberus resolves to stay behind, promising to keep the dead trapped within Hades, and taking on his mythological role as the guard dog of the underworld. The fourth area of the game is the Mazurka corridor, which was apparently named for a style of Polish folk dance music. Its boss is Hecate, the Greek goddess of magic and witchcraft. She is currently under threat by another human, a thief named Gaia, who stole her treasured silver relief. He sells it to Nakajima and Yumiko, and leaves with his life intact. Eventually, Hecate would fall just like the others, granting our heroes the Orb of Resolve. With all three orbs now in hand, our heroes descend into the rotting sea of flames, a veritable hellscape where they take damage with every step. At its deepest depths, the pair find the desiccated corpse of Izanami. During the second book, Izanami had severed her ties to Yumiko and the mortal realm in hopes of protecting her reincarnation. However, it seems that Lucifer had managed to trap her and her soul here. Using the 3 gems received from the previous bosses, Nakajima and Yumiko managed to awaken her. In thanks, she grants the two her own clothes, which protect them from the flames. In the remake, the heroes can also give her a silk thread, which, while useless now, will eventually become the robe she gives to the hero of Megami Tensei II. Returning to the surface of the rotting sea, the pair encounter another old foe, Set, the Egyptian god of evil. After defeating Persky, a Hindu god and attendant of Ganesha, they use his power to weaken Set and return him to the dust of the desert. Finally, with all of that aside, the team enters the Infini Palace, home to Lucifer himself. Their only chance to defeat him is with the help of the White Dragon Jewel, the soul of Bai Long, one of the 5 kings of Chinese dragons. Man, I really have a lot of Demon Compendium episodes to get to after this video, don't I? At the top of the Red Tower, the second half of the Infini Palace, 2 bosses can be found. The first of these is Beelzebub, Prince of Gluttony and one of Lucifer's right hands, who serves as an optional mini-boss right before Lucifer. Lucifer himself, of course, is the final boss of the game, and his battle with Nakajima and Yumiko is long and brutal. In the end, though, humanity comes out on top. Lucifer's defeat leads to the collapse of the Netherworld Palace and the end of this invasion. Nakajima and Yumiko go on to live a happy life together, or at least in the original game. The remake had other ideas. Only in Kyoyaku, Lucifer warns that the forces of hell can't be kept at bay forever. Nakajima and Yumiko still go on to get married and live a life together. But of course, Lucifer's promise comes true. Some years later, a nuke is dropped on Japan, leveling civilization as we know it and opening up a new world. A world of both humans and demons alike, which will be explored in the next game of the series. Megami Tensei I really serves as a template of what's to come, establishing many of the rules and expectations for later games of the franchise. That said, we're not going to talk about the next game quite yet. We still have to discuss the third and final book in the original Nishitani trilogy, which will be the next episode. But after that, we will be getting to Megami Tensei II. Until then, I hope you stick around, check out some of the other videos on the channel, and I'll see you next time.